What up, Cucks? It's the hater, and we're gonna talk about Retribution. Mostly because there's nothing to really talk about, I feel like. You know what I mean? Like with the upcoming SummerSlam, maybe we'll have something to talk about. But thus far, the only thing that's happening is Retribution and Raw Underground. We kind of touched on Raw Underground before, and I will say that this second week, I enjoyed it a bit more than the first week. Now, I don't know why. Maybe because, it's the second week and I expected it. And, I didn't expect it to be better than it was. But I found it interesting in its own way, right? It was just like people beating the shit out of each other. Now, the problem, of course, is that thus far as I can tell, every match is like one WWE guy versus like a jobber, right? So, I mean, you might as well just have wrestling jobber matches and I can at least see a finishing move or something, The only one that's like, quote unquote new is whatever that Daga Kata, whatever that big guy with what's it called with Sawyer Fulton haircut. You know what I'm saying? Sawyer Fulton 2, we'll call him, right? The part I didn't like was when Shayna Baszler just comes in there and she's like staring at this giant of a man who's like 6'8", 6'9", big motherfucker, right? And he's like, "Yo, I want to fight you." Like he's giving her that type of look, and I'm just like, dude, this is ridiculous. Like, first of all, no, you don't want to fight her because that's just silly, right? That right there puts her over as if like this guy is like he finds her to be like this challenge to him. You know what I mean? He's been beating up these dudes like left and right, and Shayna Baszler's looking at him like, yeah, like let's go, And then Shayna Baszler beats up 3 girls like at the same time, which all right, cool, I get it. Like in this environment, like she's supposed to be an MMA person, right? But at the same time, it's like if she's like this much of a beast, why is she losing to like Becky Lynch? You know what I mean? Why doesn't she have that same aggression with Becky Lynch? So it's either here nor there. Nothing came of this. I don't know what the point of this is, but the reason I bring it up is because the most impressive thing about Raw Underground, that's right, motherfuckers, it's the bodyguard. The guy that guards the door, that guy is the most impressive element of this entire endeavor, if you will, right? I'm pretty sure he's the same guy, that Babatunde guy who plays Akira Tozawa's like really big ninja, right? The reason why I bring this guy up is because I'm going to connect it to Retribution, right? The main problem that people have been pointing out with Retribution is the glaringly obvious problem, right? Which is they're all kind of small, right? They don't stand out. You know what I mean? Like if you were to take John Cena or Batista or Brock Lesnar, Lashley, like that kind of body type, and you put like a tight sweater on them and a mask, you would look and you'd be like, holy shit, look at that guy. For example, if anyone remembers this, back in the day, right? Muhammad Hassan versus Undertaker. Undertaker gets attacked by like 6 terrorist type motherfuckers, right? These guys come out, they're wearing like fatigues, and I don't know if they're wearing shirts or not, but they were all big dudes. You know what I'm saying? Like they were all like over 6'2" at least. I want to say around 6'5", but they were big guys, right? And they're beating the shit out of Undertaker, who's obviously a big guy as well, right? And it's believable because there's 6 of them, and they're beating up a guy, and they're not much smaller than he is. You know what I mean? So, with that in mind, the whole idea, people keep messaging me, the whole idea is that, these are like big guys beating up an even bigger guy, so it kind of makes sense. And therefore, they don't have to show their face, right? Because you just look at them and you're like, all right, they're a threat because they're huge, right? On the other hand, Retribution, it's like, I don't know, maybe some of these guys are not like the biggest pussies ever, right? But you can't help but feel that way. You know what I mean? You can't help but feel that these guys are just unsubstantial, as wrestlers, right? So it's like, I wonder where they're going to go with this. It already sucks, but I wonder where they're going to go, right? They have 2 options. Option 1 is that the people behind Retribution are just new people, right? At which point the question becomes, why do they have to cover their faces? You know what I mean? If there's someone that I don't know, it's like just show them how they are, kind of like how the Shield came in. It's like you weren't supposed to know who they are, but like everyone kind of knew. You're like, oh, okay, like these guys are here now, they're attacking people, right? But with Retribution, they're hiding their identities, which leads me to believe, unfortunately, this is going to be a group composed of like Dolph Ziggler and like, I don't know, like Angel Garza, you know what I mean? Like it's going to be a bunch of jobbers, right? And that's not good. Nobody wants to see that. You know what I'm saying? No one wants to see a bunch of jobbers when these masks are taken off, right? The whole entire idea behind masks and hidden identities in wrestling and superheroes and anything like that is that when the mask is removed, you're supposed to have this moment of like, oh my God, like it was this guy, right? But if it turns out that it's like, I don't know, like The Miz, right? Who the fuck cares? Who cares if it's The Miz, you know? So that's kind of the problem, and this brings me to that big guy, the bodyguard guy. Imagine putting this guy in there, right? Like, it would have the same effect as he had with the ninjas, right? Where it's just this guy who just towers over Tozawa. This guy's got to be at least like 7 foot. You know, he's a big dude, right? He's towering over Shane. Shane's like 6'2", 6'3", maybe. You know, Shane's not a small guy. And he's just towering over him, right? Now imagine having this guy come in there with a chainsaw and just destroying things, right? It would have that Braun Strowman feel when Braun Strowman debuted, and you're like, wow, where do they like? I remember when Braun Strowman debuted, I'm like, where the hell do they find this guy? You know what I mean? Like, I actually said it out loud. I'm like, where do they find this guy? He's so big, you know, like compared to Roman Reigns, he was just such a big guy. So it was inherently interesting, you know? And I have a fear that, like, because these guys might be new, that's still a possibility, or even worse, they might be a bunch of Dolph Zigglers, that once their masks are removed, they're going to be jobbers. There is no way out of this, you know what I mean? There's no way around it. Like, either they're going to become somebody, or they're going to become complete jobbers. And I don't see a scenario where they become somebody, right? Because if we look at the Shield, they were presented in a very specific way. And you can just look at those guys, and if you kind of knew a little bit about indie wrestling, you would recognize Seth Rollins, you might recognize Ambrose, and you can just look at Roman Reigns and be like, all right, this guy's going to be a big player. You just look at him, you know, it's like, all right, this guy has like Randy Orton, John Cena written all over him, you know? So it was self-evident that they were going to be big, right? With this group, it's not self-evident at all. And because they seem small, like some of them are definitely small, right? And the main guy, the guy who talks, and he's like, we're here for like vengeance or whatever. Like that guy was like, you need to get out of here. Like that guy doesn't sound like intimidating at all. You know what I mean? Like either don't speak or get someone that when they speak, it adds something to it, right? So, all right, fine. They attacked SmackDown with Michael Cole and the other guy, right? And they cut down the ropes and okay, Michael Cole ran away. But imagine if like JBL was on commentary or Booker T or even Samoa Joe, right? Would Booker T run away from these guys? You know what I mean? Like, fine, maybe because there's 7 of them, right? But let's say, for some reason, you had Booker T and Samoa Joe, and let's just say JBL on commentary, right? Would the 3 of them be intimidated by 5 tiny men and, like, 1 broad? Of course not, right? That's not what would happen, you know? They would be like, what the hell are you doing? You see, like, I'm not running from you. I'm JBL. I'm a world champion. Look at me, you know? But would JBL and Booker T run from Roman Reigns? Yes, that would be believable. Now, could Roman Reigns beat up JBL and Booker T in real life? I don't know. Who knows, right? Probably not, if I had to guess. But that's neither here nor there, right? He looks like he could, right? He at least looks like he could, you know? And that's very important. When you bring up 5, 6 guys that have the exact same look because they're wearing disguises, right? And no one has explained why they're doing this, right? And why the power keeps flickering on and off. What are they destroying like a generator every 30 minutes during the main event? You know what I mean? What? Explain it, right? Why hasn't WWE taken security precautions to stop these guys, right? This is something that needs to be addressed immediately, right? One of them needs to get unmasked. Something needs to happen, right? Because this is not entertaining. You know what I mean? And I understand they're trying to salvage something, like a new faction is debuting, right? And it's supposed to be a big deal. They're supposed to be big-time players. But it's like, without, you know, with their masks on, you can't really put these guys in a match. Like, it's probably not going to happen at SummerSlam because that's, you know, next week or whatever, right? Or in 2 weeks. But I think it's next week. I don't know, who the fuck knows, right? But they're obviously, like, kind of a big deal, right? Because they didn't debut on NXT. They're debuting on the main roster. So there's got to be something there, you know? Maybe there's, like, a greater plan. Maybe, like, they're, you know, the lackeys of are returning, I don't know, Brock Lesnar. Who knows, right? I'm not going to speculate here, right? Because some of my friends are speculating. One of them was like, I think Charlie Caruso is in Retribution. I'm like, okay. I didn't even respond to the message yet, actually. But it's like, what? Charlie Caruso? That doesn't make any sense, yeah? But it's like, that's what we're at now, motherfuckers. We're at the point where now people are actually, like, debating whether Charlie Caruso is in Retribution. Because you look at them and it has Jobber written all over it. You know, this is like on the level of the Mexicools, right? I heard a rumor that people were saying that it's a bunch of, like, 205 Live guys, right? And they're just, like, pissed off because they're not on the show. But it's like, who would it be? You know what I mean? Like who even is on 205 Live, right? Who's the Cruiserweight champion? It's that guy who was accused of rape in Ireland, and then, like, some other jabron on NXT. Like, doesn't make any sense to me. But anyways, I mean, whoever it is, right? Lindsay Dorado, whoever it is, it doesn't feel big time. And I have to say that Retribution completely sucks in my opinion, right? Are they salvageable? Yes and no. Yes and no, right? You have to compare them to, let's say, the Nexus, right? The Nexus, as soon as the Nexus debuted, I knew they were going nowhere, right? Just because they had that tagline of being rookies. At the end of the day, like, Wade Barrett can be, like, the most outstanding rookie of all time, but it's like, dude, he's not going to beat John Cena. He's a rookie, Like last week, he was getting advice from Jericho, and the other ones were getting advice from like R-Truth and John Morrison. You know what I'm saying? Like, they were getting advice from jobbers on how to be wrestlers, and all of a sudden now, like, Heath Slater's beating Edge. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? So I knew that eventually that was going to come back to bite them, right? I knew that maybe one guy would be like the one that breaks out of Nexus, like he just defeats all of Nexus or something like that. You know what I mean? And he's the one who's like, all right, like I've proven that at least I'm better than these other jobbers, right? And I thought it was going to be Daniel Bryan. Turned out it was kind of, but it was also Wade Barrett in a way, right? And Wade Barrett then became like a mid-carder, you know, had a decent career, nothing like noteworthy, right? But the fact was what it was, right? The only way that a new force can be introduced and be introduced successfully is if they engage in storylines immediately and they are put over, right? And there has to be a reason behind it. In this case, maybe there's a big reason behind it. Maybe they're like Paul Heyman's back, like to like, you know, reestablish ECW. Who knows, right? But thus far, all they've done is broken a generator, right? They're basically like Antifa, right? The only thing that makes sense is Jack Swagger and Zeb Coulter come back and just powerbomb them or something, right? These tiny guys. I don't understand like what the point is, right? Like, it's one thing to not have like an agenda. I mean, I understand it's going to be fleshed out later, but just look at these guys. I mean, they look like children, you know? Like, that's what I'm saying. If you had taken the bodyguard, which I'm going to call Babatunde because I'm assuming it's the Babatunde guy they keep talking about, right? If you had taken him and put him in there and put like a few other big guys in there, right? Then it would be like, whoa, like, who is this guy? You know, like the same thing that Aces and Eights did. If you remember Aces and Eights, when they first started like, you know, wrestling, at one pay-per-view, they had like Austin Aries versus like the biggest one. They call him the arm breaker because he broke someone's arm. He was like a big dude. You know, I think it was like Luke Gallows or someone, right? It was someone. But it was a big guy. He wrestled in a mask, and he was a big dude. So it was like, all right, like, Aces and Eights are serious. They have a 6'9" guy, you know, breaking people's arms, you know, with a hammer. It's not the same thing as like, oh, they get cut down with a chainsaw, the ring ropes. Like, that's not badass. I could see it being really badass if it was in front of a live crowd, you know what I mean? Where it's like, oh shit, like the audience is like, what's going on? You know, you show people's reactions and things like that, and they're destroying the ring a bit more, you know, viciously, right? It would be a bit more interesting. But right now, they've been around for like, you know, 2 weeks, I guess you could say, right? They started last Monday, and now this Monday they didn't do anything. You know, I mean, I think they broke another monitor, or they broke the glass. And by the way, when the guy threw the cinder block against the glass, he threw it so low, right? I understand maybe that was part of how they were supposed to do it, but to me, it seemed like he couldn't throw it straight. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't have the physical strength. And cinder blocks aren't that heavy to throw it straight. So he kind of like threw it downwards. And then he threw another one at this like hanging piece of glass, which was stupid, right? And even that they couldn't do correctly, you know? And they just broke a window and then they left, right? It's like, dude, that's not that intimidating. You know what I mean? Like, all right, I understand like, throwing a Molotov at the whatever, the transformer, the generator, whatever. Okay, that's kind of badass because it's like, dude, like, that costs a lot of money to fix. But I broke your window? What are these guys, teenagers? Oh, they broke a window. Watch out for these guys. You know what I'm saying? I am curious to see where it goes. I will say that I do like the fact that there is an element of intrigue, like some mystery, but I cannot see a scenario where Retribution doesn't suck. You know what I'm saying? Like, the fact that they're wearing masks leads me to believe that at least some of them are current WWE superstars that we've seen, right? I don't think it's 5 random people that we never heard of before, right? It's going to be, and if it is, God help them. Because it's going to be like Eric Bugenhagen and these other jabrones that we've never seen, like fucking Arturo Huas. It's going to be like these guys. And, you know, and then the question becomes like, why the hell would Braun Strowman, like on SmackDown, like imagine if Braun Strowman was in the ring, right? Chainsaws aside, but imagine if he was in the ring. Like, it would not be inconceivable that Braun Strowman should just power slam all 5 of them. You know what I mean? Just like he would beat those guys 3-on-1. Why would he be worried about them because they have masks? You know, it's just jobbers, right? The only way this works is if it's a minimum of one potential main event guy or a current main event guy, right? But like everyone's kind of doing stuff and no one's really like a main event level guy anymore, right? So like the only way this would work realistically would be like if Roman Reigns is back somehow, right? And he's the leader of Retribution. Or like if Seth Rollins wasn't doing anything with Seth Rollins or AJ Styles, right? Maybe AJ Styles, you see him SmackDown? I don't know. Something like that. That would be like quasi doable. But what would be the point? It's like, why AJ Styles wearing a mask? I mean, he's already like a top guy. Like, you see what I'm saying? It makes no sense. If you're a top guy, you have no need to be in Retribution, right? This is a stable designed for jobbers. That's what it is. It doesn't matter if they are jobbers already or if they're gonna be jobbers. This stable, before you know it, you know, once the stable breaks up in let's say 6 months, right? 2 of them like will be in a tag team. They will be the next Fandango and Tyler Breeze. One of them is going to be at most. One of them is going to be the next like Ricochet or the next Wade Barrett, like that level, that level of guy, right? I don't see any world champions coming out of this bullshit group. And then once the smoke and mirrors and the masks are gone, then what? Then what are you left with, motherfucks? How is this any different from Sanity, right? It's actually worse than Sanity because Sanity at least had a gimmick. You know, they had like a recognizable face in Eric Young. They had a big guy, they had a crazy guy, and they had a broad. It's the same exact thing. It's just like they're redoing it with masks and with what appears to be 5'3" people, you know? So I got nothing to say anymore about Retribution. Look forward to some reviews of, I think, when is SummerSlam? Let's check it out here, you know, because I want to know when it is so I can review it. I'm definitely going to watch it because I hope, oh, it's next 2 weeks. I hope that Randy Orton wins that title, you know what I'm saying? Oh, it's another thing that I should talk about, right? Randy Orton predictably turned on Ric Flair, right? This wasn't necessary, in my opinion, right? It was a good segment, and his match with Owens was a decent enough match for what it was. The segment was good, but there was no need for it, right? Like, we already know Randy Orton is a despicable piece of shit, you know what I'm saying? He's out there kicking people in the head already, so nothing has really been served by this, right? It's just like one more way to just, I don't want to say humiliate Ric Flair, but to kind of like really take away from the gravitas that comes with having Ric Flair as your manager, which I thought was working out really well. You know what I mean? Like, that would have been like very nice, you know? It, like, if anything, like, it might have been more fun if, let's say, Randy Orton is about to beat Drew McIntyre and Ric Flair does something and costs him the match. Then Orton betrays him, and then on the rematch, he beats Drew McIntyre, right? At least you can prolong it a little bit. You know, because I don't know what Randy Orton's going to do once he becomes champion, because I'm pretty sure he's going to win. What's he going to do while he waits for Edge? What is he going to do? He's going to wrestle like Kevin Owens. You know, he's going to wrestle like that level of guy. You know, he might, who's a face? Kevin Owens is like the only face I can think of on Monday Night Raw that has any kind of credibility to challenge for the title. I mean, he can rematch Drew. That's about it. I don't really see a like, maybe they can bring someone back. I don't see anyone that he can wrestle with on a pay-per-view. I mean, unless you want to put like a Ricochet in there with him or some other nonsense like that, you know. But like that's it. I mean, you had like nothing makes sense anymore, motherfucks. Like, you had fucking what's his name? Angelo Dawkins. He hit the sky high, whatever, cash out, whatever it's called, on Andrade, right? Dude, Andrade like 2 months ago was the U.S. champ. Or not even 2 months ago, like a month ago. Andrade was drafted in the first round. And he lost to the Devon of Street Profits. Andrade was supposed to get this push, and he lost to the Devon of the Street Profits. Clean. You know what I mean? The guy just hit his finisher and pinned Andrade. Just like that. Meanwhile, the other guy, Garza, a few weeks ago, beat Kevin Owens. Not clean, but he beat Kevin Owens, right? There's absolutely no hierarchy. It's like everyone is, I won't even say mid-carder. Everyone's like an undercard guy. And then you have Randy Orton, right? So it's like when you see Randy Orton having a quasi-competitive match with Kevin Owens, right? What is that supposed to mean? That Randy Orton is going to have a competitive match against the guy that beat Kevin Owens, let's say? Against Angel Garza? That's going to happen? And then what? Like Randy Orton would have a competitive match against Montez Ford? Where is the guy that Randy Orton just beats in 2 seconds and just punts in the head? You know, where's that guy? Like when he did it to CM Punk, when he did it to all these people, right? There needs to be a clear undercard that is delineated from this, like the rest of the pack, which is basically undercard all the way to upper midcard. They're like the same wrestlers. You know, any moment now, Montez Ford could be the champion according to this logic, right? Like, everyone's having competitive matches with everyone. You know, we need a squash match here and there. We need the Viking Raiders to come out and beat the shit out of like Street Profits and win the title or something. You know what I mean? Other, it's not working out like this, motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? All right, anyways, that's what I got for today. Retribution sucks. I hope something good comes out of it, but thus far, they're garbage, right? They're